2025 has been a very slow year for the keyboard scene. Or should I say that it's getting back to normal. People realize that there is a world outside and you can do something else besides tweaking your keyboard. In my case, there are no keyboards that really interests me. I think most of them are boring, and while some are interesting, nothing interests me enough to want me to buy them. Now, of course, if you're gonna ask the past me, like 3 years ago, I definitely would have still bought something. But back then, I don't know what I want just yet. I mean, I know what I want, but now I know what I want and it's very specific because I already have these many keyboards. So my goal here really is to look at this keyboard, tell you the history of why I bought this keyboard, what's the meta back then, what are the improvements I want to do with this, the planning stuff. And of course, I will still do the usual tests that I do with the keyboards that I look at and tell you how does it compare. And at the end of it, do I regret actually getting this board? Well, spoiler alert, no. Actually, the reason I'm looking at this is because there's something that I'm quite unhappy with this, and if I do that change, I will be completely happy still with this. And this is my most used keyboard. Obviously, this is my most used JMK set, given that there are already shine. I don't know if it can be seen in the camera. Yes, there we go. There are shining caps there. Anyway, this is my favorite board. Before I got some other boards, but like because of its simplicity and stuff, it just looks good. So, brief history of this keyboard. So this is the D84V2 from KBDFans. Now this is the V2 version because it has an older version, the V1. People were unhappy about the V1 because it is a gasket mount but does not feel like a gasket mount. Basically, the meta back then is that if you are a gasket mount, you should be flexy. It became so meta that eventually PCBs became thinner, 1.2, which is a problem because shims aren't available in most stabilizers back then. People don't even know what shims are about. They have flex cuts, and eventually the sound became thin, and most people don't like it thinner. Yes, and eventually we went back now to normal thickness PCBs, and this is it, right? This is still a thick PCB with no flex cuts, so this is still a solid board. Also, when I bought this at Shopee. A very quite funny story is that when I bought this, I actually chose the solderable PCB instead of the hot swap, and back then I don't know how to solder yet. And so I quickly bought the PCB. Apparently, they share the same PCB with KBD75. So I bought the hot swap version and used it for a while, but then eventually I bought a soldering iron and the complete set. And I know how to solder. As a matter of fact, this one that you see here uses the solderable PCB given that it has a cursed layout at the bottom. I forced the 7U spacebar because, hey, I'm a hippie. No, actually, forcing this is cursed. So this is one of the things that I would change amongst the other stuff like the step caps. More to that later. Another reason why I bought this really is because it is the only one that has a polycarb bottom that's readily available in my country and does not like steal your wallet. It's quite affordable for its time, and nowadays it's definitely expensive, but this board looks good. And you know, with this hobby being niche and everything, many keyboard manufacturers tend to flex how good their CNC process, and they will like flex to you, okay, we can do this curve and it's hard to do this curve, appreciate it, buy it. Yeah, dude, I don't care how difficult the curve was achieved. I mean, I'm not an architect or anything. I know and I can appreciate, but I won't like it just because you had a hard time doing it. I can think of many things that I can do harder, but people won't appreciate. So it's one of those things that, like, yeah, you can only appreciate those things if you actually care about that. And for me, a normal curve for a normie like me is enough. So this curve looks clean. It's not like standing out. So I like this. To be fair, I actually like KBD75 more. Design wise, because I like edgy keyboards. My PC cases has always been no curves at all, and this breaks the pattern simply because it looks neat. And again, the polycar bottom is really the thing that separates it from other keyboards. And okay, if you were to ask me if I will buy a KBD75 with a polycar bottom, no. This implementation looks good. Again, the light shines through at the bottom. This is the only part that I can see. And that's it. It looks clean and really doesn't scream like, yeah, you can do an RGB to it, but it will still look understated, at least in my opinion. So now the plan. What will I do with this keyboard? Well, as I've said earlier, I use a solderable PCB for this one. And I will do this soldering. I will do a video of the desoldering quickly. This won't be a tutorial or anything, but more than that later. So that's the first thing. Desolder everything. Then I will reuse, of course, the alu plate. Get my hot swap PCB. Test this keyboard with the 5 switches. But for now, I'll desolder, pop the switches on using the alu plate for the standard testing that I do. And of course, I will get rid of the step caps because I'm already used with the HHKB layout. In a sense, I don't use this as control. That's why I'm fine having just 2 keys here. This is my control key now. I use this as my backspace. I don't like this, to be honest. I'd rather have like individual, but it's a 75%, so it's pointless to have a split backspace. So yeah, like when I type, I use this as my control. This is temporary my Windows, and this is my Alt. But I don't want to force this. This is a cursed layout. I should have tried this. Yeah. Now I think I can fix just this and not desoldering everything. However, I don't like the stabs. Okay, this uses stebbies, if I'm not mistaken. Well, it's fine. Okay, there's something wrong here. But these, for those that have more sensitive ears, this is actually a bit scratchy because it's stebbies. Stebbies tend to be scratchier because there's more plastic to plastic contact because it has a very tight tolerance. So no matter what you do, it will still be scratchy. That's just like inherent nature of like have a very large contact of plastic to plastic. So not that I'm bothered with it, but the thing that I'm bothered is the spacebar. Okay, what I'm doing here right now is unrealistic. Spamming it is not a good way because when I type normally, this is just it. That's why, you know, like shooting your spacebar sometimes sucks because like you won't press it or spam it anyway in a normal scenario. But anyway, I change the whole stabs, give it to someone else probably someday. Use night stabs here. Use, I don't know, stabs for these. But I still have to figure out whether I will reuse the solderable PCB or use the hot swap, because if I were to go back to a normal caps and reuse 6.25 because I won't be able to use this anymore, sadly, then I can just reuse the hot swap. But then again, if that's the case, what's the point of my solderable PCB then? Yes, exactly. But again, that's a problem for future me. So right now that I'm recording this, I don't know what step to take yet. Guess we'll all find out later. So before I start with the desoldering, let me quickly run through the stuff that I use. So obviously I have a desoldering iron. This is the Pinesil 64, I think. I use the flat tip because it's the most convenient. I have the desoldering pump, which is the SS01, I think. Oh, no, 02. It's a solder sucker. I have some soldering. To be honest, I know this is called a soldering iron, but I don't know if this is how do you call this? Anyway, this is a good quality one. I think it's a brand called Kester, whatever. Now, just so to be on the safe side, I have a fan that will suck the smoke away from me towards there. All you need to do really is to like dissipate the smoke. I think once this fan pulls the smoke out, it will be safe. I don't know, but I haven't smelled it when I'm using this. I have an overkill using my spray booth that I use for Gunpla, but again, that's an overkill for a reason. So I went for this because this is free from one of my computer cases back then, and so there's that. Now also I have this brass sponge, whatever. So if I want to take out the soldering from the tip, the solder, then I can use this. And a tip refresher just to ensure that the tip is well refreshed and cleaner. Because if I don't have this, I will have to throw this away already. Now, I also need a power bank so I can power up my fan. Though I don't need to use it if it's long enough towards my power extension. But I use this because it's more convenient. And of course, the PCB that we have here. So yeah, I actually forgot to tell you the specs of the whole assembly. So this has stay-base, polycarb, I think, the material, or nylon, whatever. They have two different materials. I think this one uses the PC housing, and the other one is nylon. And I've got one of the housings already destroyed, so I'm not a fan of this. And it's a bit, I don't know, there's something different with it that I don't like, so I'll be replacing it. More into that later. And as for the build, I'm using Cherry MX Black plus Alu for a standard sound. And yeah, I'm using BCP though for the modifiers. And so I'll be desoldering this, and let's go. Now, before I proceed with the desoldering part itself, let me tell you how I do it. So I start by row per row. So I start from the escape towards down here. When I start with the row, I turn the iron off, take them all out each, and if there's anything that I need to fix, I'll fix them. And then once this one's cleared, I proceed to the next. Now, this is 75%, so this will take a longer time. Also, since I already have a lot of experience with desoldering, a lot is like 10 times desoldering or more, I can already eyeball whether there's enough soldering or solder inside that I can take it out. So what do you mean? So what happens is, if the solder is too few, super less, but at least using this, it has a hard time taking it out, and it will leave a residue. And that's the last thing that you want, because it will be harder. So there are residues that are fixable. There are residues that will forever be trapped there. And there are residues that goes deep inside the switch, not only to the socket, but like deep down. And those are the things that I hate to work with the most. And so, if I see that the solder is not enough, I will actually add a solder, so I can take them all out together. I want a clean solder, because if you are gonna sell the switches or use it somewhere else, you need to mention that you desoldered it. That's just like good practice, and being a proper human being. But apart from that, if you were to reuse the switches and there's a bad desolder or a trace there left, then there's a potential that you can destroy your own hot swap socket if you are to use that in a hot swap board. And that sucks. Didn't happen to me yet, but I have, like, when I used my old desoldering iron and pump combo, I am not able to reuse those switches. And having said that, like, using this combo, the desoldering was clean. But yeah, it's just like residues are the last thing that you want. So yeah. Now, having too much solder is also bad, but it can only happen when you are the one who did it, not the company or the manufacturer of the keyboard. So if you were to ask me, I'd rather have too much solder than few, because yeah, it's easier to manage. Also, tip for using this pump: so there are people that can use the cheaper ones and they have no problems using it, and they have shaky hands more than mine, and they're able to use it without problems. Is there a skill issue there? Probably, but I don't care. I mean, if this works for me and I save time, then I don't care if you are the best desolderer in the world. I don't know if you get medal or an award for it. I don't know if you can put it in your resume and say, I'm good at desoldering, or you will be loved by the people around you. I don't care if you are good. I'm happy for you, but I don't want to waste my time, so I will use something convenient as this. It saves me time, it works, and I don't have to practice. I don't enjoy it. I do it because I have to. Okay? So yeah. Now, with this, okay, the problem with this compared to the cheap ones, cheap doesn't mean necessarily bad, is that with this one, I can only suck 2 sockets, and then I have to take out the solder inside and throw it away. Because if I use this having too much inside of it, there will be no room to suck, and therefore it will also leave a residue. So yeah, it's imperative that you should have enough solder here so it'll be easier, and also enough space for your pump to suck those in and have a clean desolder. So yeah, that's it. So I start by plugging this in. Okay, I work with a temperature of 340. There are people that actually uses 380, or basically a higher temp when they're desoldering compared to when they're just soldering. I don't do that because I'm lazy. And while I tried that and it works and it's more consistent in my experience, I don't do that simply because I'm too tired to change this, even though it's easy. Yeah, call me lazy, and I am. So that's it. So I have this tool, okay? Not only that, but also has this. Okay? So, if I want to look deeper, whether I made a proper desolder, then I can see it here. Now, there is even a mini magnifying glass, and I can see that one still has residues. This one? So I'll do that. Okay, this one's a bad desolder, but since I'm gonna ideally solder this again, I don't have to worry. Because of my experience, I think recently when I desolder, I only have like 1 to 2 switches left in a row. And there are cases that there's none anymore, which I'm happy about because I can already eyeball it. Right? That just means that my experience is a lot better now. And I don't even have to use that much force to take them out. Back then I have to use a lot. And look how clean that first row is, except this. So okay, at least it gets off. I can take it off. Yeah, very clean. Now I won't clean them up just because I will probably desolder them again, or I can clean them up after. But for now, let's start with the second row. So for the Cherry MX Orange, obviously it sounds the same as my Hyperglides, but you can't hear that. We can't do a comparison here. But you just have to trust my word that it sounds the same outside of the scratchiness. Except that this uses 6.25U versus that one uses 7U. And also, I swapped out, like I said, the stabilizers from Stebbies to Night Stabs. Now, Night Stabs, as far as my experience goes, makes the spacebar sound steep. Now, it's not consistent. It only happened to me twice. This is the second time around. First one is with my Frog Mini, and another with this one. That's why I think for my Frog Mini, I would not have chosen that if I don't have a choice of like me not wanting to fix anything. So yeah, I like that. But that's just the classic MX Black Plus Alu, so it's a safe choice. As for the Halu-Halo, I particularly didn't like it. It's just meh. But that's not the same with the Gator and Inks, which I'm quite surprised given that if you've heard me saying this in the evaluation section of the sound tests, Gator and Inks is special because while it sounds good, it chooses its own config and keyboard, for me at least, in my ears. It only sounds good in very select config and keyboards. And I have not heard it in any of my sound tests that it actually sounds good. And this is where it actually sounds the best so far, but not quite there yet. So not an endgame switch for this keyboard in my opinion. I didn't really have much expectation with Boba U4T given that it's not really for the sound, but rather for the tactile bump. But this one is just like the usual. It is more of on the muted side. And lastly, for the Kangaroos, I actually like it, but I like it as a switch anyway. But you know, whenever I try it out, I'm just surprised on how good it is. So yeah. And as for the sound test, the final sound test, for the final build, what I've chosen is the Ube Crinkle. So let's hear it first. Now, the Oboe Crinkle is nothing that I really want for a final build, but for now, I will rock this switch just because I can. And probably someday I will reuse my Cherry MX Black, which is highly likely. But given that I have an available Cherry MX Black for something else, then I might actually try it with my Kohaku because I haven't tried it. But you know, I'm weighing in the options whether I'll go to the classic or go with what I want. But that's on the Kohaku video. For now, I will rock with this for God knows when, until when I use this config. But for now, I'll be rocking this. So, do I regret getting this keyboard? Well, obviously, as I've said in the spoiler earlier, I don't. And I'll be keeping this forever. Now, in terms of how it fares with modern keyboards, obviously with its price, I forgot how much exactly in dollars it was when I bought it back then. But it's definitely way more expensive than a Keychron Q1 was back then. So that's how much it costs. For me, at least, this is more than $200 back then. That's why I was kind of regretting getting this. But now that I've seen this and compared to the Keychron Q1, especially against the GMMK Pro, I actually like this a lot more. Simple while not exploded. I actually am fan of exploded layout. I don't have a keyboard that with that layout, but anyway, I don't regret getting this because I think sound wise I like this better than the others because it's not trying to cheap out on some. Okay, it actually tried, but not as cheap as Keychron Q1. That's why that's hollow. That's why people do force break or add a lot of foam, and even despite doing all those, it's still hollow because yeah, cheaper alu is harder to tune or fix its hollowness. So yeah. Again, comparing to the modern keyboards, this is way outdated. And I think if they're gonna redo it, I think they'll do a lot better because we were able to streamline the process of everything. I'm not even sure whether the PC bottom is was CNC'd, but I just assume that it is, but the top is not. But I don't know. So anyway, again, I don't regret getting this board. Though, what I'll do probably is play around. I want to use other keycaps that I have, such as the 8008, because I don't think I will ever have a keyboard that I could put it elsewhere. But for this one, actually, this is my first GMK set. This is the GMK Hammerhead. I like this a lot because I like the color. And yeah, so I'll play around and I like the sport. See you around.